Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to folks joining us from across the globe today. Let us get started with a short introductory video about this exciting Power Hour hosted by Harbinger.
Ensure you have selected the right speaker for audio output. Test your speaker to ensure it is working fine from the audio settings option on the lower left corner of your screen. If necessary, dial in using phone.
Again, hello everyone. My name is Rohan Bhosle, and I would be your host and moderator for this exciting event. I also have with me my colleague Kumudni, who will be engaging all of you through chat. So she's going to be our chat jockey for today. And we have a great audience of professionals and an outstanding panel of experts. Before introducing our panel, I will take a few minutes to set the context of this Power Hour. So here is our game plan. We would be first understanding the extended enterprise ecosystem. We'll see a few advantages of extended enterprise learning. Then we'll see how we can strategize some of the extended enterprise learning design and how could we measure ROI. Here's a fun fact before we begin. So did you know 40% organizations are generating revenue via extended enterprise learning? So traditionally, learning has always been seen as a cost center rather than a revenue generating function, right? But that is not the case anymore. In fact, business leaders are recognizing the tangible value that an L&D team can bring in, not only to the internal organization, but now even to the external teams. So let us start by understanding what really is an extended enterprise. Extended enterprise basically is the concept that a company does not operate in isolation because its success is dependent upon a network of partner relationships. So the term extended enterprise basically was coined in the 1990s by Chrysler Corporation to explain the necessity for a collaborative relationship between the supply chain members and focus attention on the competitive advantage the company felt they could get when suppliers became their partners. And what would extended enterprise learning entail, you may ask? Basically, it is enabling learning for these partners to get them up to speed with your company goals, product knowledge, its features, and other aspects in order for them to implement and sell better. With that, let us understand who all form this complete ecosystem of extended enterprise. So you have your vendors, you have your channel partners, implementation partners, support teams, franchisees, resellers, sales and marketing teams, suppliers, distributors, and last but not the least, the end users of your product. And depending on a company's structure and their business model, it is imperative to train each and every extended enterprise team as if it was part of your own organization. With that, again, let's jump onto a few interesting facts and which will help us answer the question, how important is it to start thinking about an extended enterprise learning strategy in case you've not thought about it yet. And let us look at some statistics from a research which was conducted by the Brandon Hall Group on learning and the extended enterprise. So interestingly, 53% audiences said they have seen an increase in the awareness of their products and services. 49% said they have seen an improved customer relation. 38% shared they not only met but exceeded corporate objectives, and 30% said they saw an increase in sales. Now, this is a good time. I would like to know a little bit from our audience today, and we'll be launching a quick poll. So it's a simple question. So are you implementing an extended enterprise strategy and you have different options? Yes, you already have a strategy in place. No, don't have any plans as of now, or you're thinking about it, or you've evaluated and dropped the idea for some or the other reason. So we'll give it a few seconds for our audience to answer. All right. We're getting in responses. Right, I'll give it another 5 seconds and then I'll end the poll. All right, and I'm sharing the results. So we have a 50-50. So we have audiences who have plans, who have not implemented and who are thinking about it. So let me stop sharing the results. And let me tell you, you are not alone. So this is another interesting fact about the research. So, even after seeing so many benefits to extended enterprise learning, only 19% or lower audiences and organizations support the learning initiatives for them. Wow, that's a huge gap, right? And on one hand, we see so many benefits, but still the actual implementation is less. And today we will understand from our experts on what could be some of the reservations for not implementing an extended enterprise strategy and how we could go about it, and see a few ways how you can deal with it. So with that, let us hear more from our panel for today. So we have Eric Plunkett, who is the managing director at Novitas and has joined us from Ireland. Then we have Rob Potter, who is the head of market and business development and at Corso Cloud and has joined us from Portland, Oregon. And last but not the least, we have Anuj Kumar Pillai, who is the associate director at Harbinger Group and has joined us from Pune, India. I welcome you all to this exciting discussion, and we can start with Eric. So Eric, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what makes you interested in this topic.
Sure, Rohan. Hi, everyone. My name's Eric Plunkett. I'm the managing director of Novitas. We specialize in training end users on many software systems like SAP, MES systems, Coupa, and many more, and with the aim of maximizing product usage. So if you're an ISV, we could work with you to design and deliver end user training for your product to maximize the usage of your software within the client organization. Our services include change assurance training services, SAP training solutions, ERP training solutions, e-learning solutions, and project content development services. About myself, I've close to 3 decades of experience leading large training programs across many industries globally. I set up Novitas in 2012. In fact, tomorrow we're 10 years in business to provide digital and classroom learning services and products. Prior to founding Novitas, I served many large organizations such as Kerry Group, Bank of Ireland, Ulster Bank, AIB, KPMG, and worked as ERP training director, SAP training leads, and training professional on many large programs. My focus has always been on finding our ways to increase product usage within the client organization for your software. And Rohan, this is what makes me interested in the topic of extended enterprise learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. And again, congratulations for completing a decade.
Thank you.
Perfect. Let us turn to Rob and get to know a little bit about him and understand what gets him excited about this topic.
You bet. Okay. Good to meet everyone. My name is Rob Porter. I'm head of marketing and business development at Coso Cloud. Basically, what Coso Cloud does is we focus on enterprise businesses and large government agencies who require secure virtual training solutions to perfectly align with their business needs. Many organizations will adopt a program, platforms, different tools, and so forth. And for the most part, it covers about 80% of what they need in total. What we do is we help complete that solution, whatever it may be in that space. So we offer tailored training solutions within a private cloud managed services, which we solve problems such as identity, branding, delivery challenges, and regulatory requirements. And unlike commodity training solutions, we ensure that high impact, tailored virtual training solutions are delivered while meeting the highest security levels and compliance regulatory oversight. So as an organization, as I mentioned, we're focused on large enterprise. Our customers include Fortune 100 companies, large government agencies. We also do quite a bit to assist in nonprofit organizations, state and local organizations. Our focus in this topic of enterprise is really our niche. This is what we do. We assist organizations in solving some of the problems that they have or they don't realize that they have, right? So my experience, I've been in the industry for 27 years. I've worked in a wide variety of different industries, providing training solutions for them. Everything from manufacturing, software, retail, primarily global enterprises as well. So happy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with everyone, and I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Rob, and really interesting. And again, it's a pleasure having you on this Power Hour today. And then let's move on to Anuj. So Anuj, over to you. If you could tell something about yourself and what gets you excited.
Sure, Rohan. Thank you so much for having me, Rohan, and good day to my co-panelists, Eric and Rob, and to our audience joining us. My name is Anuj Pillai, and I work as the Associate Director for Business Development at Harbinger. I come from a sales background, and over the last 15 years, I've been predominantly working with clients in the e-learning and software services domain. Well, my passion has always been to provide a wide range of possibilities, or you could say solutions to address business challenges of the modern day. And when working with the clients, I do come across numerous use cases. And I'm always thinking about how technology could be leveraged in solving these scenarios. Since extended enterprise is something that if we tap into in the right way, could mean revenue growth for our organizations. So I do see ample scope to leverage technology in extended enterprise. And that's what kind of makes me interested in this subject.
Thank you so much, Anuj, and welcome
Thanks.
again.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Moving on, let us see how organizations are currently training their extended enterprise. What are some of the mediums through which training is delivered? So the most common and traditional ways include the instructor-led and now more of virtual instructor-led training. And again, with travel restrictions no more being there, we're getting back to instructor-led. And we also have webinars using some of the latest, online platforms such as Zoom, WebEx, Adobe Connect, you name it. There are so many platforms to deliver trainings. And in fact, this was one of the most preferred mediums to deliver trainings during the pandemic. And, apart from that, then we have other modalities like product documents, product reference guides, which are in the form of PDFs, manuals, ebooks, and other modalities. Though the traditional ways of delivering learning is good, we're seeing a drastic change with newer modalities coming in. And let us turn to a panel to see what are some of the interesting ways to design learning for extended enterprise. So, Rob, if you would like to go first.
Sure, absolutely. I think one of the first step that we have to take is to really understand the challenges that we need to overcome, right? At a very base level. So it could be, is our content siloed, right? Do we have a consistent messaging? There's a number of different things. When we look at enterprise, as you mentioned in the diagram that you had shared, it affects so many different aspects of the organization. We really have to look at that, right? If the message is, the content can be consistent, but the messaging is different to our solutions providers, our partners, resellers, our channels, our internal team, as well as our customers, right? So we have to really kind of look at that, and we have to break through those lines of delineation, right? And how are we doing that? But we also have to do it in a smart manner, right? So taking the content that's consistent and leveraging that in a centralized location, but distributing that message out to all the different entities that we're addressing, right? Is a way to really kind of organize and work smarter, not harder as well, right? So I think that's one of the big challenges that organizations have, and training departments are not known to be vast and huge and, hundreds of people. We're talking about, small groups of people that are trying to organize this internetworking of information, right? So building a team that can handle that all and having a good 50,000-foot perspective of what it is and how we can repurpose some of the efforts that we already have put in place, right?
Absolutely, Rob. I completely agree on that. And I think not only the learning design, but even the technology infrastructure to deliver it, right? So that requires a big kind of look at, because you have so many external organizations who are going to be part of that ecosystem. So as you mentioned, adhering to compliances, making sure it's secure, all those factors will also come into play.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Great. Anuj, we would like to get your thoughts on what are some of the interesting ways.
Sure, absolutely, Rohan. And I couldn't agree more with Rob. He was kind of, perfect in answering the question from an organizational perspective. Now, I coming from a service provider perspective from Harbinger, let me put up my perspective. So first of all, great question, Rohan, and it is very true that if we speak from someone from a service provider's angle, learning service provider's angle, we are currently witnessing drastic changes in the way learning is designed and delivered, and you would agree with me on that. And why there is this sort of a disruption is mainly what I feel is because of two main reasons. The first reason is the rapid introduction of newer technologies in the learning space. And the second reason is introduction of new concepts in the learning space, newer modalities on, what are the newer ways to deliver these trainings. Speaking of new technologies, the first aspect I spoke about, examples could be artificial intelligence and adaptive learning software algorithms, that is implemented in the learning space. We could also take an example of virtual or augmented reality coming in the learning space, and these are being used to train, people, executives in the organization. And then we have learning delivery mechanisms like the learning management systems, which is also undergoing drastic changes. One concept is the learning experience platform is a new way of delivering training as opposed to a traditional LMS. So these are some of the technology aspects, though I named very few, there are many more. These are new technology aspect that's coming into play. And the second part is the concepts, new concepts in the learning space. A few examples could be gamification, which in the last 2 to 3 years has gained a lot of prominence. We are seeing that. Game-based or gamification type e-learning, is preferred because it has good knowledge retention. Then also we have very new concepts like experiential learning, wherein it's more over like on-the-job training through learning design. So experiential learning is a concept. Adaptive learning is a concept wherein the entire learning ecosystem, the LMS, the technology, the content adapts to the current level of the learner and then pushes only the relevant content to the learner. So these are new concepts. Other concepts are nudge learning or micro learning, that's coming into play. So the technology aspect and then the conceptual aspect of learning, these are these are changing drastically. So coming back to your question, Rohan, on what are some of the interesting ways to design learning for extended enterprise, I think we need to consider both these aspects, technology and conceptual aspect. From a technology standpoint, from my experience, I believe when it comes to extended enterprise, the learning delivery mechanism, Rob was talking about messaging needs to be consistent. So for me, it's a learning delivery mechanism that needs to be consistent. So something like a multi-tenant LMS is of paramount importance in this aspect when we are talking about extended enterprise learning, because if we have multiple partners, resellers, and we have different footprints and geographies to cater to. So I think the need for a strong multi-tenant LMS is definitely in place, and multi-tenant LMSs can manage organizations within organizations. And that's what extended enterprise is, an organization within organization. So that's one aspect of technology. And also these multi-tenant LMSs could deliver and track, the messaging or training very efficiently. Coming to the second aspect, the conceptual aspect, or as to what modality or approach should we use when training the extended enterprise, I would say it again depends on your target audience. It depends on your business domain. If we are training a young audience, we could consider gamification. If your audience requires ready access to complex information, then we could consider something like a just-in-time learning concept. People who have to use complex machineries and they need to check information readily. So you might have seen pilots on an airplane has manuals. So, what if we have learning that's just in time, they have a question and the information about that aspect of it is ready. So just in time learning could be used depending on your business domain. Or for example, if it's a salesperson, would also need just-in-time learning to access product information and communicate it effectively, with the prospects. If you're an ISV or a software company, we could think of software simulations as a way of training your end users or maybe some part of your sales team. We could also think of experiential learning as another example. If the job requires significant hands-on experience, we could talk, we could use kind of experiential learning. And there are other ways as well, like nudge learning. These are all complementary concepts that could kind of make it easy for the learner to access the training. So that's overall the technology and the conceptual part of e-learning that, I wanted to share about, that our audience may think about when designing their extended enterprise learning.
Absolutely, Anuj. Couldn't agree more. In fact, we're hearing a lot about nudge learning these days, making learning available in the flow of work. Right. Then even something like an AI-driven chatbot,
sales
for just-in-time learning as well. So, you can retrieve so much of information, could be integrated with your existing, knowledge portals, LMSs, and get information. Perfect. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. All right, moving on. We'll get in Eric. So Eric, you'd like to know what are the business benefits of implementing the next gen learning strategy for extended enterprise?
Sure, Rohan. You can hear me okay? Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Good. Yep, thanks. There's a number of benefits that comes with extended enterprise learning. But first, I'd take a step back and just ask ourselves, why do we even need to think of having an extended enterprise learning strategy? And the answer to that is ultimately whatever we do in business. It is either to increase business, increase revenue, or optimize costs. And in some cases, it's both. So I'll highlight a few key benefits of extended enterprise learning. Number one is to bring efficiency. So now your extended enterprise consists of external stakeholders. If we have a structured training content and a technologically robust training delivery systems in place, like a multi-tenant LMS, it'll definitely bring efficiency to your extended workforce. The aim here is to organize that what is scattered currently. And with extended enterprise learning, the content is structured and is the latest. So hence the extended enterprise workforce has access to a single point of truth. As an efficiency means return on investment and increased revenue. The second benefit would be it reduces knowledge gaps. Due to a lack of extended enterprise learning system in place, knowledge gaps would exist between customers and partners, and this would create challenges. For example, if your channel sales is not having access to the latest product information and sales training, they'd definitely miss out on sales wins. The third benefit would be reflection of your brand. This is a very important one. Every company projects a certain brand image and positioning in the market. Now, if the same messaging is not passed on to your extended enterprise, your brand would not reflect in the market the way you intended it to be. So in today's economy, businesses often rely on their extended enterprise. And it's true that the extended enterprise workforce are the ones who face customers and they depict your brand. So the question I always ask is, do you want your brand to be projected the way you originally intended? And so if so, then with the extended enterprise learning approach, all stakeholders are on the same page and they'll behave according to the brand. And this is very important for any business to give a consistent brand messaging. And the last benefit, Rowan, would be establishing processes. So to the next this benefits I'd highlight, especially if your organization is larger, has a larger footprint, it's very important to have processes around delivering training, delivering your brand message, and to collect feedback from your extended enterprise. It's often said that larger corporations are like elephants and are unable to move quickly as compared to smaller organizations. But if you have a process established via extended enterprise learning, you can adapt to changes quickly because you can communicate with your extended workforce immediately and pass on this desired message or call to action. So to sum up, all the benefits that I spoke about is aimed at either increasing revenue or optimizing costs. I hope that answers your question, Rohan.
Absolutely, Eric. Couldn't agree more on these points. In fact, one main reason, and we saw that from the stats that we presented some time back, increasing revenue is something almost 30% of the audiences said increasing sales. So it definitely plays a crucial role. Thank you so much for bringing in those inputs. And Anuj, we would like to know from you, what are some of the business benefits of implementing the strategy?
Sure, Rohan. So I think Eric pretty much covered most of the aspects, most of the key aspects. So I may just have a few things to add to, what Eric mentioned. When Rohan, you spoke about, in the earlier slides, I remember you spoke about, the traditional learning that exists currently in an extended enterprise, mainly limited to, ILTs, instructor-led trainings or product manuals or occasional trainings or e-learning. So I think what the traditional way lacks is efficiency building. Though Eric highlighted, I would like to stress more on the efficiency aspect of an organization. So, today's environment, today's business environment, it's not just about providing certification or providing onboarding training to your extended enterprise. That's no longer the question or the requisite. But it's more about being in close communication with your extended enterprise constantly and creating efficiency around it. So, you want the messaging, again, Eric spoke about the messaging. So, you want the messaging that originates within your organization to pass on to the extended enterprise very effectively. And, and the time it takes to pass on the message and the time it takes for the extended enterprise to implement or act on it is also very crucial in today's, world, especially as Eric mentioned, if you're a large organization. And by messaging, what I mean is it could be learning, it could be information, it could be processes. So whatever the company wants to pass on to their extended enterprise, it should be in an efficient way. The organization should be sorted on the way or the modality on how it would pass, the time it requires to pass on, and it should pass on very effectively. And then there also needs to be a mechanism to efficiently kind of track on how it is implemented, how much time it is taking to kind of reflect on that messaging at the extended enterprises end. So in my experience, all this improves efficiency, and efficiency improvement is one of the key benefits that extended enterprise would bring. And it would also bring peace of mind to the organization or to the leadership, as it saves a lot of time and energy in the long run. So there is consistency, and the brand messaging is intact with this new generation and the approaches and technology and everything we spoke about earlier. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, Anuj. Couldn't agree more. In fact, we're living in an age where everything has to be done yesterday. So
right.
So that communication matters a lot, and how that whole, and even Eric touched upon that. How the brand communication should go across to these extended partners is crucial and should be in a timely manner. So thank you for highlighting that again.
Yeah.
Right. So again, we would like to get in Eric, and so Eric, how would you advise one to build a business case around such a comprehensive learning strategy?
Sure, Ron. Okay. Well, when making a decision on investing in extended enterprise learning, we need to understand that there's many stakeholders involved. And for each stakeholder, the reasons for going or not going with the extended enterprise learning is different. There are areas of concern or inclination towards extended enterprise learning would be different. Predominantly, we can have a look at some of the different roles, the different stakeholders, just talk about them in a bit more detail. For example, the C-suite management, the chief learning officer, the CEO, the CFO. Another group of stakeholders come from the human resources and learning leaders area. Then, of course, we have the instructional designers who need to interact and provide all the content. Then we have the learners themselves and considering their needs, and sometimes the compliance function, depending on your industry. So let's take them one by one very quickly. The C-suite. The C-suite, or the top management, will be thinking about the utilization and impact of learning content within the extended enterprise, and also the return on investment. So to make a case, we would need to present the current landscape with respect to the areas of improvements, and how could we either increase top line revenue or decrease overheads. I think we'll be talking more about the ROI aspect later, Rohan.
Yes.
Just on the next stakeholder group, human resources, or the learning function. Well, the learning function would be more focused on the current competency and skills of the extended enterprise, and we're more interested in getting a visibility into it and improving it to meet the goals. Then if we look at the instructional designers, they have insights on how the extended enterprise learners would interact with the content, would help the IDs in getting some visibility into the extended enterprise strategy. And then finally, the learners, we can't ignore them. Since they are part of an extended enterprise, they would typically have their own learning ecosystem. And as part of the extended enterprise strategy, it's important to make sure that the learning is not fragmented. A single learning source for the learner would be ideal for them to embed learning in their flow of work. And if we can bring learning to them instead, they having to log in somewhere and take the training, that would be delightful for them. So that's really my answer, Rohan. Hope that's okay too.
Yes, Eric, definitely. So getting viewpoints of each and every kind of function within an organization on how they could build a business case. Thank you for bringing that up. And we turn over to Rob to get his thoughts on how could one build a business case. I'm sure we have a lot of audiences. We're waiting to hear about different ways in which we could do it.
Absolutely. Well, I think the first thing is to look at the end and what are the ultimate goals, right? And how you're going to define them, right? And how you're going to ultimately measure them. Identifying the individual audiences. And there's one aspect of, we have our partners and we have our customers and we have, internal groups and so forth. But what is that learning persona? Where are they? What are they doing? What's happening at that point in time, right? And I think, building the case is about the connection with the audience, right? It's truly understanding who they are. We may have groups within our, enterprise or any organization. There may be the field representatives look at training completely different than someone that would be inside of an office, which is going to have a different perspective than a customer, which is going to have a different perspective as a reseller or a channel sales, right? So we really have to dig deep into who they are and how we're connecting with them. And then from that, how we're going to measure that success. We'll talk more about that later. But I think building the case is understanding who you're working with and what is their ability to connect to the information, what is their environment around them. We talk about, how we're able to connect with these individuals if they're who they are, right? And the technologies that they're using. Are these individuals that are going to be predominantly on their phone, right? Are these individuals that are going to be out in the field? How's their bandwidth, right? I mean, I think all of this has to be incorporated in your business case, right? And building that strategy, right? So from that, we take perspectives of the technology that's available and how we're communicating. So for example, when we look at our typical a learning platform, right? And are we able to connect with them? Well, then we realize that a lot of these platforms, you have to be logged in order to communicate with them. What are other ways that we can handle this? Well, mobile applications, for one, allows direct contact with the learner, whether or not they're logged in at the time, right? And so we have a different level of connection with these individuals, which also means that a very unique and tailored connection to their information as well. And we also look at what motivates them, right? What motivates these individuals, and are we hitting the right note with them? Is it gamification? Is that the satisfactory component for that audience, right? And is gamification enough? Right? What is it? Is it just the points? Is that what they need? Right? Or is there a reward beyond that? Do we need to implement a reward system program to align with the gamification solution? Now that would make the connection for some for some learning audiences. And I think those components, as far as seeing the end and how we're really going to define success, is what will help you build a solid business case, because whoever you're going to be presenting this to, that's what they're looking for. It's how you're going to make a difference, right? And how you're going to make a difference in all the different types of audiences that you're interacting with. And to truly understand their learning persona is what's going to help you define those measurements that you're looking for. So hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely, Rob. In fact, that's a really good viewpoint, understanding learning personas, because that will be, and as you said, that will be the starting point to think about all the next steps. And another point you mentioned was about integration. So your extended enterprise could already be on one platform. They have their own ecosystem that they're working on, and how as an organization I could kind of connect with that whole complete technology stack that they already leveraging for their employees. So again, we're seeing some good use cases when it comes to integrations. And a lot of nowadays, because there's so much of boom when it comes to learning platforms per se, so there are organizations wherein there are 10, 12 learning management systems, and everyone is working in silos. So a lot of aggregator type of solutions are coming up, and the need for them is coming up basically. So and the other, and again, there could be a few challenges to getting the learner personas correct. Could be your channel partner or your reseller is based out somewhere on the other side of the globe, and there could be geographical barriers, communication barriers happening. So thinking all of that, you know perspective, I think definitely laying all that straight would help build a business case for sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. Let us get on to another interesting question for you, Rob. So, and you touched upon it, and even Eric kind of touched upon it in the past. So, how can organizations measure the ROI for such a learning initiative so that they have a good use case to go in front of the C-suite and kind of convince them that this is the way to go ahead? Yeah.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, it's with the end in mind, right? What is it that we're really looking for? I mean, and as someone I've built a lot of content in my time, as well as different platforms, and really looking at the objectives of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and making sure that they're clear from the very beginning, and also making sure that the audience understands what those objectives are, and that they can actually help participate with you as well. I mean, we talk about surveying, we talk about different points of interaction with that, with the learners as well. I think that with the ROI and how we're measuring, first and foremost, as I mentioned, defining the goal. Like, what is the goal here, right? And we need to be very specific, and we need to be able to measure that. And what are those metrics that we're gonna take a look at? Right? If we're looking at gamification, is it the points? Is it how much people are getting out of it? Is it the responses? There may be different components, because if we're looking at enterprise, we could also take a different level of measurement and take a look at our help desk, right? Is our help desk calls being reduced as a result, right? Are we seeing less activity on our FAQs because answers are being taken care of, right, in other ways? Are we connecting with this audience? Other components may be how they're looking at training and types of content that are being consumed as well, right? Are we looking at an audience who are reaching out into other areas as a way? The other component, which I think is really important, is we have the ROI, right? Which is what is that return on investment? But also, what is the ROE? What is that expectation? Are we looking at the return on the expectation of it as well, right? And all that's going to have to come down to how you're going to measure. And I would take a look at, from an enterprise perspective, looking at all the different audiences that you're going to be addressing. And I would create individual ROIs for each audience, because the goals of those audiences may differ from one to the other, right? So I would take a look at those. I would create the metrics, define the goals, look at the components. Are we looking at an ROI? Are we looking at an ROE? Are we looking at both? right? And then set the appropriate timing for the check-ins. When are we going to, at what time are we looking at a 1 month, 3 month, is it a 1 year goal? What is it? And are there sub goals within that as well? So I think from that perspective, looking at it from the learner, looking at it from the consumption, looking at it from the activity, and ultimately looking at it from the results of the meeting the business goals. And I think that's where many times training groups don't quite get the seat at the table, right? And when I say the seat at the table, I mean the seat at the C table, right? At the executive level. And the important aspect is to align those measurements with those business goals. So getting the information about how the business is managing their success as well and aligning it to that is also going to help with buy-in from that executive group too. Okay. So I'll give it back to you.
Completely agree on that again, Rob. So that's an interesting viewpoint of your return on expectation, right? So again, there could be different expectations from different stakeholders regarding extended enterprise, and some might want, as you mentioned, for the tickets for the service request to go down. Some might want to see increase in sales. And so defining that complete matrix upfront will definitely help not only get started, but even track along the way, and measuring it, as you mentioned, 3 months, 6 months down the line, when do we, plan to achieve those goals. So thank you so much for those wonderful insights.
Thank you.
All right, just a quick time check. We have around 10 to 12 minutes. And we're reaching towards the end of such a wonderful discussion. So let us quickly summarize what we spoke about today. So we saw extended enterprise ecosystem, which includes different partners, a variety of partners that we saw there. Then we saw a few advantages of investing in an extended enterprise learning strategy. We spoke about building a strong brand, reducing cost, increasing revenue, improving processes, and reducing risks. And then we spoke about we compared the old learning modalities, or I wouldn't call them old. They're still pretty much prevalent and, being used a lot, in fact. And with, again, as I said, people getting back to work, the in-person trainings have gone back to normal again. So that's definitely there. And then we saw so many new learning modalities. We saw nudge learning, AI-driven chatbots, gamification, different ways in which trainings can be delivered. And then we spoke about ROI. In fact, not only ROI, but ROE as well. So that was a wonderful kind of a quick snapshot for everyone out there. So moving on, just a quick kind of introduction about Harbinger. So we're a learning solutions and technology company having dual shore operations. So we have a couple of offices on the West Coast in the US, and we have our development centers based out here in India, where we are currently, me and Anuj are joining from. And overall, again, we were established in the year 1990. So it's been 32 plus years in business. I've been supporting a host of global organizations, developing, delivering, e-learning content. Again, we have a product DNA, so we do a lot of product development for the Learn Tech domain as well. And then we have our own products. So e-learning products, making lives easier for learning and training development professionals out there. And the industries that we serve, again, spread across different verticals, just a few listed down here. We work with a lot of high-tech and independent software vendors, helping them develop, an extended enterprise ecosystem as well. So that's a little bit about Harbinger. With that, we're open for questions. And feel free to, and this is for the audience, feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A pane, and we'll be happy to bring them up for our panelists to answer. So we've already started getting a few questions. So this one says, what technology or infrastructure should be considered while delivering to the external audiences? So again, it's open to the panel. Anyone wants to take this up? Feel free to go
Maybe
ahead.
I could go for it, Ron.
Sure. Anuj. Yeah.
Yeah, so well, as we spoke about the technology aspect earlier as well, so primarily the learning delivery mechanism is important when we are talking about the extended enterprise, because as we said, it's scattered, it's multiple organizations, multiple partners, etc. So potentially considering multi-tenant learning management system could be a key for your extended enterprise. And it does not mean that you need to procure a full-fledged system right in the beginning. We could start considering the current landscape of your extended enterprise and identify, which of the stakeholders within your extended enterprise needs to be catered to. And whether it could be a channel sales partner or system implementers or customer service organizations, etc. And we could take one step at a time. And if you don't want to invest upfront, we could take one step at a time and cater to each of these prioritized entities. Other aspect of the technology or infrastructure could be the complementing technologies. Good to have sort of technologies. These could be nudge learning frameworks or artificial intelligence-based chatbots, adaptive learning frameworks, or in case your extended enterprise works remotely and may not have access to, let's say, internet always, we could have something like an offline player application to get them access to content even when there is no internet. So all these complementing aspects coupled with the learning delivery multi-tenant LMS would be good when we talk about technology.
Interesting. Thank you, Anuj, for jumping in.
Yeah.
And we have another question. So what are some of, I think, we answered that one. What are some challenges or things to consider while implementing learning for global extended enterprise? And maybe anyone, Rob, I can see you're unmuted. So
I'm happy to take that one for sure. I think one of the things is to make sure that all the stakeholders are involved at the very beginning, right? Mm-hmm. I see a number of projects that get started by a small subsection, and that goal, the mission of that project is not communicated to everyone. And then over time, that project starts to grow, and then people are starting to come in and go, hey, I didn't know about this, and hey, what about that, and so forth. And I think some of the challenges that slows down the process, right? And in some cases where the key stakeholders thought that everything was well defined, is now there's some changes, right? And they have to go back. So I think it's important, even if the peripheral stakeholders aren't fully active and involved in the process from the very beginning, at least they're aware of it, and they can communicate any sort of concerns or interests at the very beginning. And I see that happening quite a bit with starting enterprise programs, right? Because and I would look at the key players and just introduce them. This is a conversation for them to build something together. This is not something for an individual to create as a silo and hope that it satisfies everyone's needs, right? So I think with that, and this includes not just, if we're talking about sales channels and we're talking about partners and we're talking about all these other things, but also your IT department alone, right? You have to understand from a training perspective that your stuff lives in their world, right? And they're the ones that are in tune with what devices are being used out there, how people are connecting, what's the path of least resistance, those types of things. You as a learning professional can understand how to reduce friction within that process, but involving IT and all the other stakeholders at the very beginning is a crucial step in ensuring that it goes smoothly, it goes on time, and it stays on budget, right?
Thank you so much, Rob. Yes, definitely you've nailed that one. And yes, we hope got the answer. And we have a last question. So can we leverage existing content, or do we need to develop? In fact, this is a good question. So I'll come again there. So can we leverage existing content, or do we need to develop or acquire or curate new content for the extended enterprise?
Yeah. So Ron, may I take it because I'm from content services?
Go ahead. You can go ahead, and I can see Rob
Right.
unmuted. Maybe Rob can go next, and
Sure.
Eric, feel free to jump in anytime.
Sure. So yeah, it's a great question again, Rohan, as you said, because whenever we talk to organizations and we are discussing extended enterprise, this is a typical question that is asked by many of our organizations. And the answer is yes, we can leverage our existing content. There is ultimately absolutely no need to build everything from scratch when you're planning an extended enterprise strategy. So as the first step in the process with respect to the content, we could potentially identify what we have currently and what we need to develop as new modules or courses. So then we take up the existing content, and then we identify whether it needs any modernization. And by modernization could mean multiple things, whether you want to make your legacy or existing content more interactive as you're moving ahead with this strategy, that becomes modernization. Or would you like to kind of enable some compliances like SCORM compliance if your courses were not SCORM compatible, or you want to kind of include accessibility standards like WCAG, etc. in your existing content. So take the existing content and we'll try to kind of figure out if it requires some modernization. So that's the first part. And with the list of new content that you wish to create, we could again take that part step by step. So we could identify the urgency. Let's say if you want your channel sales to have the content first, we could prioritize that and take up development of newer contents accordingly. And if I may plug, we at Harbinger have certain software frameworks. We have certain templates ready. Those would be really helpful in modernizing your content as well as developing new content. And by frameworks, what I mean is we have software tools ready that could take bulk uploads of your existing content, and we could modernize those. We could make it more interactive. And with your newer content, if it is identified, what are the different types of courses or modules you need, we could take a templatized approach. We could develop maybe 5 or 8 templates, or you could say models in which these content would be developed. And that would kind of significantly cut down on the time it takes and also the cost it takes to develop these content. So yeah, we can leverage the existing content. And for the new content, we do have methods in place to do it in an efficient way.
Thanks for that, Anuj. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more as far as that. And templating is crucial, and siloing your templating based on the audiences that you're going to be addressing. A great example is we had worked with a global automobile manufacturer that's very well known, and we found that they had a lot of content that was being used internally, and they had spent a lot of time and effort in building it. We were able to take that and repurpose it. And as you mentioned, templating and just presenting it in a different way to the different audiences. I am a huge advocate of liberating other people's ideas, right? And repurposing them, because we're talking about, as I mentioned earlier, these are small departments that are trying to deliver these programs, right? And to be able to utilize existing content in a way that makes sense. Taking existing videos and really just running them through something like Adobe Premiere, where you can extract the transcript and reconfigure that content like that, right? So we're talking about, relatively low level of effort to make a big impact to address multiple audiences. And so I second that.
Yeah, and just to add, I think the new technologies that are out now really sped up the whole process of even taking classroom training materials and converting it to really good online learning. It can be done in hours now, whereas it used to be days, and a lot of effort. There's really slick tools now to convert that content into very interactive materials. You can import videos in with this content and bring in elements of e-learning design, but you're not fully doing an e-learning. You're just in some elements, but that's optional too. You can just have it nicely streamlined and really speeds up the whole process now.
Right.
Absolutely. Great. I think we're on top of the hour. I think we've kind of gone through all the questions that we had. If there are any left out, we'll be happy to follow it up via email. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It was a wonderful discussion today. And I hope we get many more such opportunities to interact. And again, thank you to the audience for joining in, and really excited for another upcoming Power Hour in a few weeks, and you'll be nudged upon that. So again, goodbye, take care, and have a great day ahead. And for those of you who are ending your day, have a great evening. Take care. This is Rohan and the team at Harbinger signing off. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.